So I do have someone coming through, and immediately they're just making me aware that it's like it's not their first rodeo, and that it's almost as though they've been on display post-mortem.
That would be correct.
So I feel as though I do have a male. Yeah, I don't feel like this person was in media per se, but I feel as though they were in the media. So
Okay.
when I ask kind of what did you do, and they're sort of showing me the sort of snippets from their life, like I'm seeing a lot of handshakes, gentleman to gentleman type handshakes.
Yes, that's correct.
Broker.
And
And I heard broker, so like brokering.
there was a certain amount of brokering. Yes.
So
Yeah.
what they're wearing as well, when I'm seeing this, I'm seeing like more sort of suits.
Correct.
Yeah, so very clean shaven.
He kind of had two distinct looks, one when he was younger and one when he was older. And when he was younger, that represents him more closely to what
Yeah,
you're
okay. Yeah, and I'm getting those hats as well for him, like those little they fedoras.
Yep.
He's making me aware that he's lived with someone, getting sort of visions of the two of them readying themselves for certain events and things.
He was in a partnership.
Cameras with them as well. So lots of photos being taken of the two of them. Like they're very much in the public eye. Like she's actually wearing like a fur coat. And I feel as though this relates to the era.
Yes. And that would be later, I would say, later in his life.
I want to say 40s.
Yeah, that would be correct.
His job's also international. So he shows me like a lot of flags.
Yes,
and there's a bit of politics involved in this too.
There was definitely political, I guess, activity around him at certain times.
It's almost as though, he might be having a discussion with another country or a representative from another country, diplomatic discussions.
But just to validate a little bit of that, and you're seeing like a young man, so he did pull in and collaborate with different people from different countries. So he was quite good at collaboration.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I almost feel he's like a marketeer or PR type person, the way he's been roped into different discussions.
But that was, I guess, to help him with what he needed to do for his main occupation, which is what he's known for.
Okay, so his passion or what he was known for. Okay.
Yes.
So and so he is making me aware. I am seeing like a lot of letters, envelopes that have been ripped on the table, and like I feel as though they're bills, and I feel as though like he's not extremely wealthy, but there's like a lot of stress around these letters that are sitting on the table, and they're business letters, with the clear panel, you can see the address on those types of letters.
Okay, so I do have some insights to what I think he's showing you there. He got a lot of rejections.
He shows me a little ashtray there as well, and a burning cigarette on that.
But he smoked a pipe.
Is he based in Europe? Is he based in Europe? Are these European?
He was, yes. And the family was, yes.
And I don't feel as though they're English speakers. Is that correct?
They wouldn't have been.
Just asking for a flag. I want to say like red, yellow, maybe blue. Is that yellow and blue?
Oh, it's red, yellow.
Red and yellow. Okay.
And there is a third color, but it's not blue. It's close to blue.
It's all right. I'm not seeing it like a clean flag. I'm just seeing sort of the color. I said, what does the flag look like? And I see the red first, then I see the yellow, and then I thought I saw blue. So
do you want to spend a bit more time on the country, or would you like the country?
Yeah. No, let me keep going. I'll see what I can pull out. SP. Spaniards. Are they Spanish? No. Okay. I do get a petri dish with him as well.
Yes.
So he worked in a lab. Or had some sort of something sort of science. I think some sort of science.
Yes, that's correct. And I think this is just him demonstrating, trying to find ways of showing you what he did.
And so that's his area of expertise, working in science.
Working in science, yes.
Okay. And around that science too, I almost feel it's like there's good areas of this science, or like research for good, and then there's research that could be used in a bad way as well.
Yeah, that's correct.
Significant to him.
Very significant to him, yes.
It's almost like he just showed me like the DVD cover of like Oppenheimer, like knowing that you're being asked to do things, and
Yeah,
then
that's
um,
absolutely spot on.
knowing that you're being asked to do things that aren't sort of for the greater good and having to grapple with yourself internally. It's like he could invent something and then it could be used later for something else, and
That's
it
correct.
weighs on him.
That's correct.
And I feel as though he doesn't really have anyone else to talk to about that in his circle. It's really something that he had to carry.
Yes. Yeah. It was prominent through different times of his life as well.
Because I feel as though he delivered on like a lot of contractual obligations, but then when he delivered after that, like he was sort of portrayed in certain ways that sort of in a poorer light in some
Yeah,
regards as being responsible for something when really he was used to produce something.
that's correct. Yeah. And when you say contractual, um, he was very dynamic on his own, so he produced rather than contractual work would have been more his thing.
Because I feel as though he did receive money, but it almost feels as though paychecks are coming in from different directions and they're not necessarily for research he's doing. It's more so like he goes out with his partner and people want to take pictures of them or something, or someone wants to interview them. And so he kind of he receives money from different sources.
Yeah.
It's an interesting energy. It's almost like, I want to say like Instagram influencer, like someone who has different, not so much sponsorships, but just different
Yeah.
income coming in from
At
different.
different parts of his life, it was definitely times of his life, it was definitely necessary. And then at a certain point in time, there was more media. There was media that was available, and he was a figure at that
Yeah.
time. So he was in the media and was able to and he was seen in the media and globally.
Yeah. Okay. Because I don't feel as though he liked being in the limelight. It was just sort of incidental.
That's correct. I can imagine that would be the case, judging from what I've read about him.
And also like he takes me to one of these parties because I feel as though there was some really elaborate sort of type parties. Like I feel like I'm in the scene of The Great Gatsby. And
Yes, that
he's
was
just sort of
correct.
sitting behind drinking and I guess sort of people watching,
Yes.
but it's really not his style and it's
No,
not his vibe.
no. So yeah, he wasn't exactly known for all his interpersonal relationships. He had a certain personality type.
And he could hyper focus too. So
Yes.
he did have a tendency just to like shut the door and would just work for days on end.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and when I ask what he's doing, like I see like a big drawing table and I get a circumference. Remember the old thing
Yes.
that you put the little
Yep.
pencil in and draw a circle?
Protractor.
Yeah, a protractor, that's the word I'm looking for.
Yes, that would be correct.
Because this looks like real plans, what he's drawing out here on the table.
But there's definitely an element of that.
Something time, maybe like wartime or maritime.
Okay, wartime is correct.
Okay. Because this planning table and yeah, the protractor, it does feel very much like the piece of paper I'm looking at is gridded and I could go and put pins all through it.
Okay,
I don't feel as though he worked in an office or with other people. It just seems like he's by himself in a room, like in a large
correct.
room with the door shut.
Yeah, that's
And
correct. He worked by himself in his apartment.
yeah, I don't feel as though he's like a leader in the wartime effort, but I feel as though he is certainly a consultant or someone that seniors contact because I feel as though he is sort of hidden as well. He's not, his location's like not known to enemy spies and things. Like he's sort of hiding to protect himself in some respect as well.
But
German?
he's German, yes.
Okay.
And he was hiding, but largely from the kind of things he was keeping a low profile during that time in Germany.
Right. Okay.
He wasn't hiding, he was definitely keeping a lower profile.
Because I feel as though people around him know who he is too, because they whisper.
He was a theoretical physicist, He was also a mathematician,
That
and
explains why
so
he's using a
he was
protractor.
an author. Protractors, I feel like that's very specific to one of the things he did, but he was a theoretical physicist
Okay.
largely, but yeah.
Yeah. So I feel as though he was not employed for a long time when he first, graduated. I feel as though he was under a
Not in
lot
his
of
field.
financial stress to begin with.
Yeah.
And it was almost like the war
Yes,
was like a triggering period where there was a pivot there and there was a shift there. And suddenly he um, sort of became employable, I guess, because his particular skill set was in demand.
that's correct. So he didn't. I think he left university when he was about 21, and it wasn't till he's around 28 that he actually got a job in his field. Are you picking anything up about like his relationships or
Yeah.
like
So I do wonder if this is his first wife because there's just a lot of arguing and it does seem as though it relates to money.
yes, she wasn't known for her bright, sparkly personality.
And because I almost feel as though she's quite rough, like would throw things,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, she looks like quite a solid type lady.
And
Yeah,
I just
they
feel really, really cross and like would get angry about things and would just throw things.
right. I could imagine that. So it's interesting to know that.
And I think at the end as well, with her departure, I feel as though she just up and left. I don't feel as though he sort of initiated anything with his second wife first. I feel as though it's more she's just walked out.
So she was actually a physicist student with him as one of only two females at the time. And she helped him with a lot of research. She didn't have a very bright, sparkly personality, but they lived together in a one-bedroom apartment while he was a clerk, the patent office. And he became quite distant from their relationship. Contract is you're not to expect any affection. You're not to talk to me unless I ask you to. And you're to take the care of the house and bring me food. So she refused, and that was the end of the relationship.
But I do feel the boy. I feel as though there is a son there, a little boy.
Yes, two sons.
And I feel the one that I'm seeing too, he's little, like he's not even school aged. I'd say he's about 3. Do you know how old they were when she left?
Yeah, he would have been very young.
Glamour puss. She's really glamorous. His second wife.
She doesn't be glamorous, but she enjoyed the glamorous life that came with them. Yes.
And I think that's what has yeah, so she shows me that she's really glamorous. And I do see them getting ready together to go out and her being sort of in her element, dressing
Yes,
really well.
she enjoyed.
She's
That's correct.
younger too,
I don't actually know. She doesn't appear to looks around the same similar age.
but this isn't her second marriage. This is her first marriage to him.
Her second, but she lost her husband.
Okay, it's her second marriage. Why did you show it to me that way?
So yeah,
Two children. There's a girl that comes up for her.
she had 2 daughters.
Okay, I do see him getting recognized with a ribbon as well. And it's like, it just doesn't mean anything to him. He just opens a drawer and just puts it in the drawer and shuts the drawer.
Would you like me to tell you about his award?
Sure.
Okay, it was the Nobel Prize.
Okay.
It took him many years to get the Nobel Prize. So anytime after 1918, and he got it in 1921. And it wasn't for what he probably thought it should be for. It was for one of his lesser known works. And I can see why he would have put it in the drawer, like, really? You're giving it to me for that? He wasn't recognized for some time.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
what I think. And I would say it would have been quite political at that time.
Public life. So I feel as though he did more public life type appearances later in life and wasn't sort of locked in rooms.
That's correct.
Does it relate to weaponry?
Yes, there was.
I hear the word bomb.
Yes, that's
Um,
correct. That's correct. Atomic bomb.
Yeah, I just feel as though I've got a page full of formulas in front of me.
That's correct. He wrote a letter to Roosevelt to encourage the whole project because he had heard he wanted to warn the US that Germany might be developing nuclear weapons. So he really had a push to get it all up and running and started, but then he wasn't involved so much with the development or the testing, and the terrible regret and shame because he was a real pacifist for various reasons in his past.
Because he's Jewish.
Yes, he's Jewish.
I feel as though he's in his 70s when he passes.
Yes, he was 76.
Okay, I do feel as though there's something at the back of my head here as well for him, because I feel as though he passed in a bed.
Yeah, he did. He was in a hospital.
Yeah.
And
I'm getting something in the back of my head.
Okay, not his head, a ruptured aortic aneurysm, but it must have been a slow leak, and he refused to have any surgery.
So did he pass in the 50s, 1950s?
Yeah, 1955. That's correct. Do you know, if you can see what he looked like when he was older, you will know who he is as well.
German physicist.
He had quite distinctive hair.
It's not Einstein.
Yes. What gave you the clue for that?
You, because you said he's got crazy hair.
Yes.
Like, well, the first one to pop into
I
mind.
shouldn't have said that.
But
Look,
I know Einstein. Everyone knows Einstein.
I know. Well, but it's, look, like I said, I didn't choose him. He chose me.
Yeah, okay.
So
I didn't actually know that he had anything to do with like the war effort. I didn't know he was German.
Okay.
I assumed he was European.
Look, I think I would like to hear your message from him.
Yeah.
There must be a reason why he wanted to come through.
It's around like the work that he did, and it's around the work that people are doing now, and saying that it's almost like if you set the intention for something to be used, and if you sort of surround something in love and you set the intention for your work or something to be used in a really positive way, that's how it's going to be used. If you're doing something for the money, or you're doing something for accolades or to feel congratulations, the energy around that thing that you create, it's not going to have a long-lasting impact.
And some good quotes, good messages for the world. So one that I particularly noted was, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that we used when we created them. The important thing is to never stop questioning.
Good when I when I tune into those marriages. The first one didn't feel like a real strong energetic alignment between the two of them.
Yeah.
And you see her leave and shut the door behind her. It's not it seems pretty amicable when she leaves, but I am being made aware of words exchanged and things thrown in that relationship. The second wife, it's almost as though she just wants to hold his arm and have a picture taken.
So that was exactly what I saw on the video I watched. That was what they said, that she really liked going to the events and traveling and being with him, and like the accolades that went with that. And I'm pretty sure she had a fur around her shoulders. Yeah. The first wife, so with the divorce settlement, he said to her that he would give her his future Nobel Prize earnings.
That was optimistic.
And that was a lot of discussion, because how did, was he going to get a Nobel Prize? And then it was many years later, and he did. And that would have been about the same as 12 years of his salary. But the second marriage, Elsa, I think her name is Elsa. So Elsa, she did manage his social life. So, and she was his caretaker, pretty much. And he had affairs, and they say a relationship with his secretary as well. But she died in 1936 and he died in 1955. And I think his secretary looked after him after that. But he was sad when she died, but it says that he really expressed emotional attachment to anybody. That just was part of what I think was probably now would be that he was quite on the autistic spectrum, possibly. And that's what's thought about him. Yeah, so he lived through World War One and World War Two, and his work was pretty much indirectly because he came up with the atom theory, and also E equals mc squared. I mean, you can turn matter into energy, so all of that were big contributors to the atomic bomb.
Mm.
And then he fled Germany. So about the Germany piece, yes, he was an immediate target because he was Jewish and pacifist, and his work was labelled as Jewish physics, and it was considered un-German. So
Goodness.
his name was actually put on a Nazi death list, and he had a bounty on his head, which was in the
Mm.
newspaper.
Well, that makes sense why he was hiding.
Yes, well, that was at the time that you were talking about, that would have been World War One, and he was working at a possibly, I mean, it can get a little bit mixed up, but he was working as a scientist, and they were being called on to do some, pretty horrendous things at that time to aid the Kaiser's kind
The
of
war
war
effort.
efforts.
Mm.
Yeah, and he was not happy about that. So yeah, it's interesting. So he didn't hide in Germany. He was in Belgium, and then he left for the US in World War Two. He had renounced his own German citizenship when he was about 15, so he didn't get called up into the army. He was living in Switzerland, in Bern in Switzerland, which is where you saw him in his apartment, and he had the job in the patent office. His father was really working hard for him to get a job at a university, and they would, between him and his father, they would write letters, and his father actually died before he got his first big break. And that wasn't until after he had written his four big papers. Yeah, so he was only 26 when he published the papers, the four groundbreaking papers, which are still the basis of science today.
26, gosh, that's crazy,
I know.
isn't it?
Yeah, and working by himself in his room, working in a patent office. So there was the photoelectric effect, and that was the one that got the Nobel Prize. And that was that light behaves as both a wave and a particle, so it's quantum mechanics. Um, there was also the E equals mc squared, the famous equation about the mass energy equivalence. And then he also discovered atoms. So through particles in water. And there
Mm.
was something else, quantum theory.
Got a lot.
There's a lot, yeah, a lot. So quite amazing. Yes. So he did not directly work on the Manhattan Project, but it was his letter to President Roosevelt in 1939 which helped push for its creation. And he had conflicted thoughts about the bomb. So
Yeah.
he did sign the letter urging them to start research. And then after it was used on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he deeply regretted it. And he became a strong advocate for nuclear disarmament. And
Yeah.
he said, if I'd known that the Germans would not succeed in developing an atomic bomb, I would never have lifted a finger.
Yes. Yeah.